So I'd be back. So I now call this meeting of the Wakefield Youth Council to order. Do I have a motion to start the meeting? Do a motion?
Yes, I motion to start the
Anthony,
meeting.
do you have a second? Anyone?
Second it.
Awesome, Nick. And all those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Perfect. Unanimously, passed unanimously. So now we will, Anthony, you can go over the minutes real quick from the last meeting.
Would you like me to go over how the minutes work, or just the minute?
Yeah, just do a quick overview, like what minutes are, then say just like what happened, and then.
Yeah. So the minutes will be posted on a few days before the meeting that is after the meeting that it actually addressed, and essentially those minutes sort of just are a summary of the meeting, everything that occurred. The votes, roll call votes, or just voice votes that may have occurred, and just as a recording, kind of a detailed description of the agenda and an outline of what occurred as the agenda progressed throughout the meeting. So I can just quickly pull up the minutes from last meeting.
Actually, Anthony, I totally forgot. We can do attendance real quick. So before you start, I'm gonna do attendance. Sorry. Okay. Is Alex Skeldon here?
I see Alex logging on, right?
Yeah, Alex is right there. Okay, great. Alyssa?
Here.
Awesome. Lauren?
Here.
Lauren. Okay. Megan Cohen?
Here.
Awesome. Nicholas Poliri?
Here.
Awesome. Summer Milski?
Here.
Uma Gerwick?
Here.
Yana Herzog?
Here.
Awesome. I'm here. Anthony Amatucci? Anthony's here. I was talking to him. Emanuela?
Here.
Awesome. Madeline Fournier?
Here.
Awesome. Jenna Farber?
Here.
Awesome. William Mezekofsky. I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to say that.
Here.
Is he here? Is that here? Awesome. Amelia Fontas?
Here.
Awesome. Ali Zan Atui. I don't know how to say your name. Sorry. You here?
Here,
Awesome. Hey, how do you say your name?
Ali Atwi.
Ali Atui. Awesome. And then Thomas Bernardo?
Here.
Awesome. Everyone's here. So Anthony, you can keep going for 10 minutes.
Wonderful, no worries. So essentially, as I was just saying, the minutes are sort of just a summary of the of all the certain topics that were addressed during the meeting. Any votes that were taken are also recorded in the minutes. And essentially, would you like me to? I don't have to, but would you like me to screen share the minutes from last meeting? To just
No, you just say what happened. It's fine.
Yeah. So essentially, we kind of had an overview of everything with the Youth Council operating procedures, the rules, responsibilities, and the roles of voting versus non-voting members. And then we also did a vote for the chair, vice chair, secretary, and also we during that time we had some discussion about liaison assignments, which we completely have addressed now. And we also addressed some aspects of communication strategies and how subcommittees could possibly work. And then we had a presentation from the Public Safety Building Committee about a proposed renovation for the police department. And then after that, we did some final roll call and voice votes about determining the next date for the meeting, and also just some votes about which committee should join us for the next meeting. And we, of course, we voted on the school committee, which is why Mr. Lyons is with us today.
Awesome. So do I have a motion to accept the minutes? Anyone?
Just to be clear, I did email those out to everyone. So
Yes, they are in your inbox. So motion to approve the minutes.
I accept.
Okay, Alex, do you have a second?
I second.
Awesome. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Awesome. All opposed? Perfect. Unanimous consent. So do we have any public comment? If not, I just want to go over quickly what the Youth Council is again, just for any very new people watching. So the Youth Council was created and by the town council just to bring the youth voice into the town politics, to make sure that young people have a voice and we can share our concerns and kind of share what we want the future of the town to look like from a young person's perspective. So we're kind of here just to talk to people in town, talk to town administrators, talk to town committees, and just make sure that they're all taking into account young people's voices. So do we have any public comment from anyone? Awesome. So if not, Superintendent Lyons, we're super excited to be here. So if you want to get started.
Unmute myself. How is everybody today?
Doing good.
Good. So Jack sent me a note and invited me to this conversation. Based on his first email, I got the sense that this was somewhat structured, but also there could be time for Q&A. And correct me if I'm off, Jack, with any of this, right? One of the things that's important to me is to try to meet the expectations of the group, right? And so to have I know there's an agenda where it says superintendent's presentation. But then if it's going to be semi-structured and we're going to answer a few questions, I don't have a prepared presentation with slides, okay? But Jack did share a couple of questions that he had asked me to address. And so, and these questions are not all of the questions that I will address. I'm happy to take any questions during a Q&A if we can have time for that, Jack, right? And Catherine, and I'm also more than willing to come back and to join a conversation with this group as a larger group or as a smaller group as well, right? And I know I've met some of you in the course of my work. So those of you that I've met, hello. For those of you that I don't quite know yet, don't be a stranger, right? And so we administrators at central office, we have a superintendent, which is myself, and an assistant superintendent, which is Miss Morrow, Kara Morrow. And some of you, I think, know her. But I think one of the things that we're learning in during this closure, during this new Zoom environment that we're creating, is that one of the things that we're really missing are opportunities to see students and to interact with students. Like we interact with like the same 50 people every week. Whereas when school is in session, we'd see hundreds of people a week. And we don't have that benefit that we had when school was in session and we were able to meet face to face. So if there's anything that I'm discussing today that you would like to talk more about, anything that you are interested in thinking about how you might be able to get more involved or come to a school committee meeting or any of those things, I'll be happy to help answer those questions as well. Does that seem fair? Yes?
Sounds great.
All right. So one of Jack's questions that he led off with, he wrote, the leaders of the council are wondering if you could address reports of racism in the school system. And in the topic of racism in general, and can we share a little bit about what we're doing in that area? Is that accurate, Jack? Pretty close? Yeah. And so we do know that with our closure and with all that's going on in the country, right? And really the tipping point seemed like the violence that was happening in Minneapolis. That was like a break point for people, where people looked to nationally to be like, we are done. We are sick and tired of this. We are not going to stand for this anymore. And people have joined together to want to have different conversations, and not just conversation for the sake of having conversation, but conversation that they hope will lead to change that they can see and feel, right? And so as we interact with students on Zoom and in person, and as we interact with faculty and staff, I think that that's a common feeling and a common refrain that people are just like sick and tired of, violence toward people of color, especially young men, and how that's happening in this country, and what does it mean? How can it still be happening, right? And I know that that is a common question that we've gotten from some of our students, like how, Mr. Lyons, how can this still be happening, right? Like, my gram was involved with the civil rights movement, or we studied it in school, and it seems like we're not getting better, or are we going backwards? And I think in some ways it feels like we are, right? It feels like we are. And so I think people are seeking to understand more. I think they're seeking to learn more, and they're seeking to hear different perspectives. So in regard to your question, Jack, about reports of racism in the school system, we've had some students that have come forward on social media. Some have emailed us directly, and they have said that, some have identified themselves and some have not. Some have reported anonymously, but some students have come forward and they've said, I am a person of color, and I was a student at Wakefield High School a few years ago, and I just want to let you know that I didn't feel like I was treated very well as a student. And they provide some specifics. And so they're sending us letters. And so we've gotten, I think, 4 formal reports, right? We've gotten, email, letters, and social media that have really indicated that there's been some pretty difficult situations that kids felt like they were in, that they really felt like it was just not okay. And they felt like they were treated differently because they were a person of color, right? And so what we're doing when we get that information, we have a civil rights officer in the district, and that is our assistant superintendent, Kara Morrow. So her job is to investigate and to substantiate, to see what is the substance of this claim, what happened, what took place, and what should our response be to those claims. And we're kind of working through those things. One of the things that we've also done is we've reached out to all of the students that have made these claims, and we've had conversation with them, right? And I think that the majority of the students that we've spoken to who have made formal complaints, really just want to see change happen. Like that is a common refrain and a common feeling. Like, this happened to me, we want you to hear this, and we want it to be different for students that are coming behind us. And so what we're doing is we're investigating those reports, and we're trying to figure out how we need to respond to those reports to help students feel safe in school. So that's kind of the work that we're doing in regard to the reports that were made that came to us. We're also hosting a lot of kind of learning opportunities for adults, and thinking about, what do adults need to learn to create a better learning space for kids? I know our teachers, are pretty good students, right? And so not only are they good at their subject areas that they teach, they also really want to learn themselves. So we're offering some professional development for teachers and for school leaders, for principals and administrators like me. We're going to be doing some professional development in August that focuses on equity, diversity, and inclusion, right? We're going to be working with the Associate Dean of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion at Boston University, who has worked with us. He worked with us last summer, and he's going to be coming back this year. We actually have a 5:15 call with him today to talk more about what that professional development could look like. We're also thinking about a course that we could offer for faculty. And we're also trying to coordinate with him on the possibility of creating a high school elective, which there's more information to come on that. Manuela shared some awesome ideas with myself and with Miss Morrow and Mr. Pavey. He is our history and social studies curriculum coordinator, about changes that she would like to see put in place. And one of those things that she would like to see put in place, and correct me if I'm off, Emanuela, please, all right? You had made the suggestion of a diversity and a multicultural class, right? And so to have these conversations, and we're thinking about how to work that into the curriculum. There's a new curriculum framework in history that does some of that, but we're also exploring ways to think about how to do that in different ways in our different classes. So that's some information on the reports that were made. That is some information on how we're responding to those reports, and also some professional learning and development that we're doing with adults over the summer to try to learn and get ready to come back to school in the fall. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that.
Does anyone have any questions? Just unmute yourself if you have anything.
I do have one question.
Sure.
If we are to go back to school in the fall, would it be like split, like where one group learns online for a week and the other group is in the classroom, or would it be like all the students are in classroom and have to be?
So is your question, Maggie, if I heard you correctly, you trailed off at the end, right? And I just want to make sure that I heard your question correctly. Are you asking what coming back in the fall is going to be like? Yeah? Okay. I'll get to that, I promise, okay? And if I don't, when we're all done, you need to ask me again, okay? But I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I answered the question about reports of racism and what we're doing about that.
Yeah, actually, I have a question about school resource officers, because I don't go to Wakefield High. I left system in 7th grade. But I know when I was at the Galvin, there was a school resource officer. So does the school system have any plan to take school resource officers out of the high school and middle school, or are those still going to be implemented next year?
We have a new high school resource officer, and we have our middle school resource officers. We're maintaining those positions, Jack, right? And so different communities are kind of taking a different approach to their SROs. You know, our school resource officer at the middle school she's like a teacher, right? I mean, you'll see her in classrooms. She works with kids. I think she has great relationships with kids. And I know in different schools, in different towns, and different systems, SROs can look different and do different things, right? And we have a new SRO coming to the high school, and we think he's going to be a good addition for our community, right? So
I will echo that. I work closely with the SROs, and they definitely do a lot with social emotional help. They do professional developments with me, and they just do a lot of outreach and connecting not only students, but families to resources around mental health, violence, a lot of different things. So they really have a special place in the Wakefield schools, and I'm glad that we've been able with the school department and the police department to make an enriching experience for that.
Yeah, I think, this has become a very political issue around funding the police. When I'll be honest with you, I don't, I think really what it's highlighting more than anything is just this real inequity in regard to what people need in communities. And I'm not excusing any police behavior at all, right? And I'm not saying that the police don't need better training. They do, and they know they do. But I don't know if cutting funding is going to allow them to do more training with the police officers that need that training. I don't know. I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's a complicated issue. And I know that there's kind of, different political sides to this, but in Wakefield, we are continuing with our SROs.
Cool. So, do you want to move on to the next question that I emailed you?
So Jack's next question was related to your question, Maggie, which is, how the heck are we coming back in the fall? Right? Yeah, I know you didn't ask it exactly like that, but that's like the burning question, right? Like, what are we doing? And so we got guidance from the Department of Education, and it's about 20 pages long. And so the Department of Education is asking us to create 3 plans, right? To improve our remote learning plan, right? To create a hybrid model, which is what you were talking about, Maggie, right? So in the hybrid model, different people have talked about it in different ways, right? So a hybrid model would be, if there's kind of a range, right? If one end of the range is like full-time in person and the other end is full-time like remote learning when you're not in school, a hybrid is like something in the middle where like you would come to school for some amount of time and also learn at home for some amount of time. And so, Maggie, you're spot on. And I don't know if you heard this from the Commissioner of Education, but the commissioner, his name is Jeff Riley. He's a big fan of saying, the way he puts it is a hybrid model could be going to school for 1 week and learning from home for 1 week. We administrators, us as an administrative group in Wakefield, are not crazy about that idea, because not seeing you guys for a whole week just seems like too long, right? So what we had talked about is not going 1 week on, 1 week off, but in a middle plan, we had talked about the possibility of kids coming to school for 2 days, like one cohort of students coming for 2 days, maybe half of the students, and then the other half coming for another 2 days. And then 1 day a week would be for teachers for planning, preparation, and to also kind of do office hours or meeting with students that might have questions about the work that they're doing. But when students are in school, those 2 days, it would be like an opportunity for teachers to introduce new content, to kind of answer questions that you might have about content that you might be studying or about work that you might be creating. It might be opportunities for you to work with small groups or other students on projects. And those are all the things that have been missing in our remote learning plan that we would like to have an opportunity to do. And so, but those are the 3 plans. The third plan is a full in-person plan. And what the commissioner and the governor have come on TV and said, I don't know if you saw them, but they've basically come on and they've asked all districts to try to create with safety precautions that include protective measures and masks at the secondary level and in upper elementary, but to try to bring kids back and keep them at a safe distance. And that would be for all students full time. And so that's the plan that we're working on right now, but we still need to produce the other 2 plans and get those ready for August. We'll probably be done sooner than August, but that's where we're at. And in regard to your question, Jack, about input, so we're going to send out a survey to parents where we're going to ask questions about like how your son or daughter did during remote learning. Did they do well? What were the challenges? Do you have wireless? Do you have enough computers? What are the challenges? And to also hear about, what might be challenging to come back in a hybrid model. We've heard from a lot of parents that to come back in a hybrid model where students went to school for a few days and then were home for a few days, a lot of parents have said that would really be difficult for them, especially if they have young children. And their children in their school system, if they don't live in Wakefield, were on a different schedule. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah. So those are things that we've heard that could be challenges, but no matter what plan we create, there's going to be kind of a benefit and there's going to be challenges. But to answer your question, Maggie, the plan that we're working on right now is the plan to bring all students back while keeping social distancing, and also taking safety precautions. Yeah.
Awesome. So does anyone have any questions? They unmute themselves.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I just had one question. So I was wondering regarding the system of learning for the fall regard to COVID-19, how will extracurriculars also be affected with regard to the same issue, and to what extent will extracurriculars be permitted to continue in the fall?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Anthony. And so one of the things that the initial document that was provided to us from the state, so it didn't include a lot of information. And it did not include information about extracurriculars, did not include information about athletics. It did not include information about transportation, for example, like buses, right? There's still information that is going to be forthcoming from the state that we have yet to get, but we don't have any guidance on that yet. Yeah.
So I have a question about safety precautions.
Yeah.
So I know the town provided masks to each resident like in March and April. So will the schools be providing students masks in case they don't have access to them, like once a week, twice a week? Like, do you have a plan for that?
So we're going to ask families to provide masks for their children, Jack, right? Or face coverings, right? And so, but we know masks are going to be like pencils, right? And so most kids bring pencils to school, but sometimes you forget, right? And so if you forget, we will have masks for you, right? And so, yeah, it's a little like visiting different places today where you can't get in the door without a mask, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we also know that there's going to need to be some adjustments that we make to start the school year. Like, you guys have been out of school for 61 days. So when I say adjustments, we know, like, to start off, we need to get people back and get them in a routine where they can feel safe, right? And that they can understand kind of what the routines are, what's the same as it used to be, what's different, and how are we going about our day. We also know that we're going to need to do some like baselining around, okay, where are you at academically? How are things working for you? What do you feel like you need help with? And so there's a lot, part of the work that we need to do is just reconnecting. I know it sounds easy, but it's not. It's going to be a change in schedule for everybody.
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt. So in regard to the parent input or parent guardian input, is there a plan for students to have a voice in this process?
So this guidance, Lauren, is coming from the state. So if the state says, for example, we need to come back in person, students, when we get you back, I think we would be seeking your input once we got you back. And I think principals will be reaching out to try to meet with kids and hear kind of questions that you might have. But I think that would be happening at the building level, if that makes sense, right? But but one of the things that I don't want to miscommunicate about is, some students have asked, can we choose? Can we choose not to come back? Because I really like remote learning and being home, right? Not everyone says that, but some students do. And the answer is no, you can't choose. If the state is giving us guidance and we have to move forward with a plan, then you can't, say like, I don't really want to come to school, that type of thing. And so we know it's not going to be perfect, Lauren, but I do think the principals are definitely going to be interested in what students are thinking and kind of how they're feeling when they return. Yeah.
Do any of our middle school members have any questions? I feel like the high school people have kind of dominated. Does anyone from middle school have any questions?
Yes, I have. Maggie, you can go.
Oh, you can go. I've already asked one.
So my question is about the safety precautions. I know that certain students may, apart from students that have medical conditions that make them unable to wear masks, some students may try to refuse wearing masks. So how would those students be dealt with?
That's a great question, Ali. I think our working theory is if everyone's required to wear them, so wearing a mask doesn't only keep you safe, it keeps other kids safe, right? And so if me wearing a mask keeps you safe, Ali, and I refuse, but it endangers you, that's kind of like a difficult situation, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm a little bit of a rule follower myself, right? And so I think I would ask students to say, like, you know, unless you have a medical condition that would allow you or preclude you from wearing a mask, right? Or some other reason that we need to know about, just refusing probably is not the best choice, is what I would say to you.
Okay, thank you.
I would say that respectfully, right? So in my prior life, Ali, I used to be a middle school principal, right? And one of the things that I think I learned as a middle school principal is we want to give kids good information, and we want to answer their questions, and we want to kind of create this expectation that they just really make good decisions. And when we do that, I think most of the time kids do, where it gets difficult is when it gets in the space like do it or else, like that seems like a threat. That doesn't seem good, right? So
Yes, I agree with you.
yeah. And so other questions or thoughts?
I have another question.
What do you
So
got?
I was put in the knowledge of someone said to me, masks aren't for your own protection, it's protecting other people from the particles that you might have. So if you were to get sick, even if it wasn't with COVID, just you had a cold,
Yeah.
Would you be allowed to attend school with the mask on, or would you be asked to quarantine for 2 weeks?
You have all the hardest questions for me today, Meg. It's just I don't know if someone gave you all the hardest questions to ask me. I think if you're sick, we're going to ask you to stay home until you're and we want you to be free of any symptoms, and checked if you need to be checked before you return to school.
And just a reminder, if you guys later on in the meeting, we could have our public health nurse and our public health director on at our next meeting to answer more COVID type questions as well. So keep that in mind.
Emmanuel, you had a question. Do you want to go?
Yes. Kind of similar to what Ollie was saying, but I was wondering in regards to elementary school students, because as you're aware, a lot of them don't like to listen, and it's as if I was wondering how the safety would work and how people would keep them accountable for keeping their masks on and maintaining the distance between other students.
Yeah. Well, I don't know when the last time any of you were in an elementary school, or if you've seen anything like a sensory path, like those paths, you see dots on the floor. So we're going to do a lot of coaching around, we're going to build it into the norms and routines just around how to keep kids socially distanced. There's very cool things that teachers are doing at early elementary, right? They're doing things like asking kids to put their arms out and saying angel wings, or, just to kind of build in routines so the kids can start to figure out how to be distant from one another. And so some of that will be built into the norms and routines during the day. We've talked about using a dauber, a dot, it makes it a mark, and putting that on students' hands and say, you got to wash until the dot comes off. There's little very cool things that you can just build into the routines of the day that I think students will embrace it because they will feel like it's part of the day. In regard to the guidance that we're getting allows for our K-1 students not to wear masks, right? And so, so some parents will choose to have their children wear masks, And some kids will rock with it. Some kids will figure it out and do a great job. Other little guys will going to be like, get this off. And, you know, if you're a K1 guy, we're going to say, okay. You know, if you're a little bit older and you're in upper elementary and you refuse, I think it's the same. My answer would be similar to the answer that I gave Ali, right? That would be my response. Does that make sense, Emanuela? Okay. Alex?
Awesome. I mean, does anyone have any other questions?
I just have one quick one.
Okay, awesome. If also guys, there's a raise hand feature. So if you want to raise your hand, now if you go to participants, you can hit raise hand so we know who has questions. That'd be cool. But Megan, if you want to go.
Okay, kind of like what Emanuela was saying, but not with elementary school students, probably just with high school students. I feel like we all, not like everyone obviously, but there's a bunch of people that aren't gonna keep the masks on all day, and there's only so many teachers related to kids, so people are gonna put it under their nose, they're gonna take it off to breathe. I work in a restaurant and I see people do it all the time.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, I don't think there's really anything you can do about it, so it's more of just a statement than a question, but it defeats the whole purpose when people put it below their nose, because then everything's out in the air again. So, and also lunch, are you going to have to make people leave a space in between them when they're eating?
One of the things that we haven't worked out yet, Megan, is the lunch schedules, right? And so one of the things that we're trying to figure out now is how to kind of maximize the spaces that we have while trying to promote safety precautions that include social distancing. So one of the things that we're doing is we're looking at setting up classrooms where the desks are between 3 and 6 feet apart. And so there are questions that we're looking at right now in regard to how best to make lunch happen, so we don't have that worked out just yet. And we're also thinking about, you know, the very strong possibility of getting kids outside more than we have done in the past, to let kids get fresh air and to take masks off, to give them like mask breaks so they don't feel like they need to cheat, right? So that it doesn't get so annoying that they gotta, you know, put it down. And I get it in regard to the, you know, I see people all the time where it's not on their nose. My mom does that all the time. It drives me crazy, Megan. And I have to tell her, I have to remind her that you're not helping anyone when you do it that way. So yeah. But
Okay, awesome. Alyssa's the next person I see. So Alyssa.
So this is something that might be a little more up in the air at the moment, but I did hear something about if we do go back to school in the fall, that it would be the same students in the same classroom all day and the teachers would rotate.
Mhm.
Do you think whatever plan we put in place, would it look like that? Or would it look more like something where students do move like they do now, but desks would be like disinfected after each class?
So one of the things that we're talking about for the very reason that you bring up, Alyssa, is to try to minimize kind of the traveling and interacting with large groups, right? So I do think some portion of the day, when it's possible, adults might switch class to class, right? And so I think we're investigating that right now. And that's part of the guidance that we've gotten to really limit the amount of contact that kids have, right? And so we say limit. It's when we know that we're not going to stop it. We know that you're going to see friends in school. We know that we need to make it okay for you to see different friends in school, but we want to try to limit it to keep people safe where and when possible. You know, one of the things that we're talking about, Alyssa, and the rest of the group, one of the things that we're talking about very candidly is to get everyone back. You know, after the first week, the second week might look different from the first based on what we learn. Does that make sense? Right? So when we get back and we're figuring out, like, if we're doing a really great job and kind of the transmission of the virus continues to decrease and we can change and kind of change our schedules and do some different things, we're going to do that and we're going to try to adapt. But the same thing also exists where if the transmission of the virus increases again and we need to go back, pull back either to a hybrid plan or to an all remote plan, those things are very strong possibilities as well. It's a little, Alyssa, it's a little like reopening the economy, like how there are phases, like every so often there are new permissions if things continue to go well. That's kind of like what reopening is going to be for us. Yeah. It's going to be a process that we all work through and learn with one another. I think Uma had a question, Jack.
Yeah, Uma's next. So that's what I see.
Yeah. So you said that you're still figuring out how to do lunches when kids take off their masks.
Yeah.
Would it be a possibility for lunches to be moved outside into either the field or the cement area at the front of the school or the courtyard?
I think every possibility that we can put on the table is being discussed right now. I think the question there would be supervision, cleanup, and how do we just make all that work well, right? And so I think it's that all of those things, Uma, are being discussed, right? We're looking at all of the spaces in the school for instructional purposes, right? One of the questions that the Commissioner of Education has asked, can you use like part of the gym, if you need to open up spaces for kids, or can you use project rooms at Galvin, so what does that look like? How do you split classes up when you might need to create smaller groups? So the short answer, Uma, is that right now everything is on the table. Yeah, did you think of that, or did you hear about that? That's an option.
I just thought about it. Megan kind of stole my question, and yeah.
It's a great question, and I hope we can do that, because that might just be like the perfect break that kids need, right? So
awesome. So Summer is next.
Sorry, I had to unmute. A quick question. So if a student has a family member at home that can't be in contact with like a big group of people, or they have a medical condition, or they live with a grandparent or something and they need to stay home, or their parents like will not let them go to school, would there be like a special online learning, or would it just be like not going to school?
I don't have an answer for that, Summer. I think, that very question was asked on a call like this where we had, a couple of hundred superintendents. The question was, how do we provide service, or how do we educate students that might not be able to come back? And, the short answer is, we want to try to create ways for kids to come back, right, safely. If we can't, then what's plan B? We're still working on plan A to get to plan B right now, Summer, is the short answer. But we do anticipate that, some adults are going to have difficulty coming back, right? If I'm being very honest, and we don't know who, we don't know how many, we don't know, but those are things that are going to be real-time problem-solving things that we're going to need to figure out to open our schools. But it's a great question.
Okay, next is Yana.
Hi, Yana.
Hi, I was wondering sorry, this is my dog. I was wondering what would happen if a student does get COVID, and would we like continue on with schedule, or like what would happen with that?
Yeah, I think the question becomes, the question is really about contact, Yana. So, right now in the workplace, if someone if for example, I tested positive for corona and I came in contact with, everyone who I work with in central office, I would need to let our public health nurse know, and we would do what they call contact tracing. And what they do is they keep track of like, who did you come in contact with? We need to let them know. And chances are good that those people would probably be quarantined for 14 days to make sure that they don't become symptomatic. So those are the types of responses that we make in the workplace. And those are the types of responses that we would make in school as well. So for example, if you're in a first grade class and a student or an adult for that matter is tests positive, the question needs to be like, so how do we respond? Do we close that class? Do we close if more kids came into contact with other kids in the wing? Do we close more than one class? Or do we close the school? Those are things that we have to be prepared to do. But we would work with under the guidance of our Board of Health to try to figure that out to keep everybody safe.
Totally. So yeah, Superintendent, we know you're super busy, so we have one last question from Maggie, and she'll be the last one.
Never mind. You guys just covered it.
You sure?
I was gonna ask you guys if we're gonna do contact tracing.
Oh, who is going to do the contact tracing? Yeah, that's a great question. Where do you get all these? Mag, you're like, is your mom a nurse or something? How do you get all this info?
She's a physical therapist.
What's that?
She's a physical therapist who has to visit some like COVID patients who are no longer contagious. But she has to visit them, so they have to do the contact tracing and they have to do all this stuff. So I'm wondering if they'll be doing the same things at school.
Yeah. So with the guidance, you know, we need to follow the guidance that we're given from the state in regard to, you know, keeping students separate and how the nurses will interact. But it's my kind of working assumption or my theory right now that that will be done with probably our school nurses and the Board of Health to figure out how best to do that. Right?
Awesome. So thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate you talking to us. I know you have a very busy schedule, especially since we're getting close to the deadline of having to figure out all the school stuff. So we really appreciate it a lot.
Jack, it's my pleasure. Did someone else have another question? I heard someone speak.
I had one, Superintendent Lyons. We want the youth council goes both ways, and we want the youth council to act as a conduit to other youth in Wakefield to send messages and provide information to their peers. So are there any messages that you need help getting out there from the youth? I know that's big. You could even write something up, and I know they'll be putting a press release after this meeting. So is there anything that you think would be helpful for them to get out to their peers?
So if you think of it after I'm gone, Jack has my email address and he can share that with you, and you can just shoot me a note and I will try to get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Okay. You can also get in touch with Miss Dingra and she can be in touch with me as well. Again, please do not be a stranger. If you have questions or you're curious about what's happening, don't be a stranger, right? So the more that you ask and the more information that you give us, that's like a two-way street. I think it's beneficial for us and also beneficial for you, I hope.
And we have youth on this council. All of the youth are assigned, have chosen different town boards and committees to serve as liaisons to. So we actually have two high school youth who are assigned to the school committee and one middle school. So I think Jenna for the middle school, and then Lauren, and who is our other school committee?
Is that Jenna Farber from the famous Farber family?
It is.
Goodness, that's impressive.
Farber, and then we've got Alex Skeldon will also be serving as a liaison to the school committee, and Lauren.
So who is the third? So we have Jenna, Alex, and who's the third?
Lauren.
Awesome, Lauren. Good. And so you'll see me at school committee meetings as well. Are you going to be at the meeting on July 14th?
Maybe. We haven't really discussed that yet.
Okay.
But
you know what? I will send you a Zoom invite, and if you can make it, great. And if you can't, great. Okay? Good.
So, amazing.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we will now keep going on the agenda. So next is Lauren with the town liaison department things. So
yes. Oh, go ahead.
You go.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what a liaison is, how it applies to the youth council, and your role as a liaison to whatever department or board or committee or whatever that you decided to be on. So a liaison is someone who communicates with another person to facilitate and develop a working relationship between you and whoever you're talking to. So the purpose of the youth council liaisons is to provide a voice for the youth on different things that relate to that department or committee, rather than just the town as a whole. So the goals of being a youth council liaison, we kind of have four steps. So first you want to educate yourself on what the committee or department, what their purpose and goals are. And then the second step, so Catherine will connect you with the committee or department that you're going to work with. So you can kind of email back and forth and get to know each other a little bit. And then the third step, you want to kind of meet within the next month to discuss your role and what your goals are and what their goals are for having a youth liaison for the relationship that you're going to build. And that meeting, it can be a phone call or a video call, something of that nature, just to develop a relationship. And then the last thing, you'll figure out a time for them to present at one of our meetings. They can present on who they are, what their goals and visions are, and what their hopes are for working with us, with our group. So I'm just going to read the list of the liaison assignments. If you could just give me like thumbs up or say that you're good, that would be great. So Alex, you're on school committee. Good. Okay. Alyssa, town council. All right. I'm going to do school committee. Thank you, Catherine. Megan and Nick, you'll be police department. And then Summer, you're doing Envision Wakefield downtown. Uma, you're on environmental sustainability committee. Yana, you'll do Human Rights Commission. Jack is doing the Public Works Department. Anthony, you'll be Media and Communications. Emanuela, Housing, Wakefield Housing Authority. Maggie, you will do BB Library. Jenna, School Committee. And then William is on the Planning Board. Amelia is the Senior Center / Council on Aging. Ali, you are the Conservation Commission. And then Thomas with the Health Department. So if there are any changes to that, you can let myself or Catherine know so we can fix it. So one thing that I do want to emphasize is that one of the larger purposes of being a liaison is for you to be able to have a voice not only with our group but with the town. So if you're if you're a voting member or non-voting member, like middle school or high school, it's something, this opportunity is something that you can use to voice your opinions on things that you'd like to change or just have an opinion on in general. So does anyone have any questions about the liaison positions? All right, if you do, please, you can shoot me an email or Catherine. We'd be happy to answer that.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. And now we're going to me. I have a little presentation on Robert's rules and like parliamentary procedure in general. So Catherine, can you just allow me to screen share? I think it'll be in the security settings to allow participants to screen share. Awesome. Screen share. PowerPoint. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so just intro to Robert's rules. So what are Robert's rules? Robert's rule orders are a way of keeping order in a meeting or debate and allows for all voices to be heard. And these rules are a form of parliamentary procedure and used in most meetings that require voting. These are also used in Congress, like the House and Senate. And so why do we use them? We use Robert rules to keep order during the debate, make sure everyone's voices are heard, and it allows for a good structure and allows the secretary to take notes and keep the minutes. So I just want to like have this is like the main point of Robert's rules is introducing a motion. We do this all the time. Like I motioned to start the meeting. So all you need to do is you need to introduce it. Every motion needs a second. Then every motion will either be voted on by a voice vote or a roll call vote. And usually we do voice votes for like approving minutes or starting the meeting. But like if you're doing like a serious vote, like voting for chair, we do a roll call vote, which requires a 2/3 majority. So this is just
Jack, can anyone introduce a motion?
anyone can introduce a motion, but only voting members can vote on the motion.
Okay.
So this is just a little example I wrote up. It's just like a motion that we accept the minutes, then someone seconds it, then all the players say aye, I'll say nay. The motion either passes or fails. And usually most things pass unanimously, but some fail and some require a roll call vote if you don't know necessarily if it was majority A or nay. So, and then the last thing I'm talking about is the role of the chair, which is my job. And the chair mainly serves as like a role to recognize speakers and maintain order, and make sure they put motions for votes and announce results of votes. And the chair has to remain impartial, except if there's a tie, and that tie would be broken by me. It's kind of like the president of the U.S. Senate only votes if there's a tie. So does anyone have any questions about Robert's rules, how to introduce motion, roles of chair, etc.? No? Okay, great. So you're just some of the sources I have, and helpful tools. This is a super easy one. The link on the bottom is just like a quick, like super cheat sheet intro to Robert's rules. And in the beginning, Catherine did email us a guide to Robert's rules. I don't know when it was. It was, I think, this for the second meeting. So in your email, that will be there too. And I will throw that link into the chat. So, does anyone any other questions? Great. So next move on. The last thing to do is determine the next meeting date. So usually we did 2 weeks. Let me just look at like my calendar. I think it'll be July 27th. I think July 22nd. So Wednesday, July 22nd. Is that okay with everyone? Be at 4 p.m. Okay. So it's all good with everyone? Perfect. So now, since we had the superintendent last meeting, we had the police department. So does anyone have any ideas for what they want next week to be? Or next meeting, sorry. Like who wants to come speak? Any ideas?
What about the public health department? Because we have questions on coronavirus, so.
Does everyone agree with that?
I was going to
say public health department seems that. Okay, so we're thinking the public health department next meeting for July 22nd. That work for everyone? Awesome. So does anyone have any other business they want to talk about? Anything else they want to talk about before we end the meeting? No. Awesome.
Oh,
okay.
Do you mind if I?
Yeah, go.
How do I say something? How do I ask you a question, Jack? If I'm just sitting here and do I make a motion? Or
well, technically it would be like you say a point of motion, and then like you'd be I think you can just say a question, I think is what it is. I forgot the exact name for it in Robert's rules. And Molly one is different, but you have a question.
All right, I just have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, actually, no, I don't have a question. I just wanted to explain kind of what Lauren was talking about with your liaison roles. I've actually talked to a few of the folks from different boards and town departments that you all are going to be liaisons to. They are so excited. They are really excited. They said, oh, when am I going to get my liaison? So I think this is going to be a great opportunity. So stay tuned from an email introduction from me to that person. Alyssa actually already got to experience this with our town council chair, Ann Santos. So they already started a dialogue. So I'll do an email introduction. And really it is to find out a time so you can talk to that person to understand a little bit more about their board or commission. If you want ahead of time to get an understanding from me, I can give you that basic knowledge, but the information is available, like Lauren said, on the town website. So you can kind of start to read up on that board or that commission, and you might even know someone on it. So does anyone have any further questions about the board or committee assignment liaison rules?
No. Also, Catherine, answer your question. It's a point of inquiry.
Point of inquiry. Thank you.
It slipped my mind. So,
and I do have to say, I found Superintendent Lyons' presentation informative. Did you?
It was awesome.
Get something out of it? So hopefully, like we said, you all are, great conduits to your peers to be able to say, you can explain what he explained to you all today. So if people have questions, you can say, actually, this is what they're dealing with.
Yes, awesome. So if we end the business, I motion that we end our meeting and suspend until Wednesday, July 22nd at 4 p.m. So do I hear a motion?
Second.
Okay, so Alex motions. Do we have a second?
Second it.
Awesome. We have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
Awesome. All opposed? Okay, no opposed unanimously. So I'll see you guys. Perfect. So the meeting's gotten done. So I'll see you all July 22nd, 4 p.m. We will have hopefully the public health department be here to talk to us. So
Good job, Jack. Thank you. Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Have a good
Bye.
4th of July.
Have a nice day.